What is up? My name is Cierra and welcome to my channel. Alright, so for this video, I'm just going to talk about the 5 books that really changed my life as a child. First up on the list is Harry Potter. I don't have the first one physically with me. I gave it to a friend like 3 years ago and she's never returned it. You owe me, Kara. Where's my book? Ignore that very vague threat to my best friend. But really what changed my entire childhood was that this was actually like my first book series that I read. I was always a little bit of a late reader, but once I started, I could not stop for the life of me. I was an only child for 13 years of my life, so I really just attached myself to books and to reading, and I really loved Harry Potter. I loved just diving into like a magical world with different characters, with creatures, with the magical school. Everything was like top tier. I remember when we were talking about it in one of my classes, we were very much just trying to cover like the themes of the book. And what I really got from it as a kid was that it really focused on having a lot of hope and having that found family despite what you've been through. And I really loved that message, because as somebody who always isolated themselves and was really alone a lot of the times, I really loved just seeing how Harry came from such a difficult background and how he really kind of cultivated his own life with his friends, his family, and just really got part of the community that he was not even ostracized from, but completely ignored from because of his Muggle family. Because of the extreme distance that his family had on his mother's roots, it really showcased that it's really hard to get into the world that is meant to be yours when there's so much external forces that is keeping you from being part of the world that you obviously belong to. And I really felt that as a kid, because I connected with my friends, but it was also hard for me to like become, I didn't want to be popular, but it was really hard to kind of like really create and nourish true connections, especially when I moved around quite a bit. So I really didn't have the opportunity to really forge deep connections and make friends for like forever, up until I came out to the suburbs. And me and my best friend, we've practically been family since 5th grade. And I never really would have had that connection if I didn't make myself open up to her, even though I didn't know if I was going to be moving away or not. But I'm so excited that I just opened myself up to her, because to this day, even though we both moved away from the area, we're still really cool. We still text each other because, you know, as adults, you know, things kind of like get in the way. But I love her, and, you know, I feel like this book really kind of helped me become more comfortable with opening up myself to other people and creating, you know, lifelong connections. Next up is Esperanza Rising by Pam Munoz Ryan. For those who've never heard about this book, it follows Esperanza and her family live in Mexico, but then they flee Mexico to go to California. It's set in the Great Depression, and now while living in California, Esperanza and her family really adjust to a new life and new environment. Esperanza now is working, and there's just a lot of, you know, family struggles, and also just because of the climate at the time being the Great Depression, there's a lot of cultural things going on too. So it really is just really jarring, especially for a young girl. And I really absolutely love the fact that I was able to read a story about a little girl in a different time period. When I was younger, like looking back, I was very much into like historical fiction. Like I loved like the little diaries books too, and reading stories of different characters in different time periods. Like, I don't know what it was. I just absolutely loved it. Maybe it's just because I was around the same age as them. And even though it was at a different time period, I really just loved reading from that time, different time periods, and just reading different characters and what they could have experienced during Great Depression, the Holocaust, and everything like that. I feel like it was just very fascinating to me, and somehow I felt out of it as I got older. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm glad that I actually had the opportunity to really enjoy it as a kid. Next up is Night World by L.J. Smith. Now, mind you, I was a huge Twilight fan, but I believe the Night World books came out before Twilight? I think so. I absolutely loved vampires at the time. I loved the stories. I loved the characters. I was just so much into vampires and into, like, I was very much into, like, at least, like, the surface kind of level of occult type of thing. Even as a child, like, I really, like, found it very fascinating. I love the characters. I love the writing. And the way that L.J. Smith really kind of incorporated the characters in the different stories. So, like, characters within the first one would show up in book 2 as side characters. So it was a lot of just letting other characters showcase their world and their different aspects of life that they were going through. Not even life. I really loved how L.J. Smith really incorporated the characters into the different stories. So, like, this one follows Poppy and James, but the next book follows, like, Poppy's friend. And then you actually see, like, how they're connected. It doesn't, like, outright just say Poppy's friend, such and such. Like, it really just gives you different characters, and you think, like, oh, it's completely different. And then you see, like, Poppy's name in the book. You're like, oh, wait, that's how they're connected. They know each other. I found it really creative because not a lot of books I was reading at the time was doing that. So it kind of really helped me see, like, oh, okay, like, this character is going through something, this character is going through something, and then being able to connect it back to the first book or even just other characters from the other books where it's just like, oh my God, they actually know each other. Oh, like, this is how they all really connect when it comes to all the stories. I found it just so fascinating, and I loved everything about vampires at the time, even though I didn't really, like, obscurely research it, but I love just reading about it in Twilight and in here. We have another historical fiction book, and that is Bud Not Buddy. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a brief overview. I feel like not everybody hears about this book, but I feel like everyone should. All right, so Bud Not Buddy follows Bud, who actually ends up in the foster system. And so, but he is on a mission to find his dad. He found a flyer in his mom's room before she passed, and he convinced himself that his dad is Herman E. Calloway, which is a famous musician in a band during the Great Depression. So he is like, yeah, of course, I'm gonna go from house to house, but my mission is to actually find my dad and tell him I'm his son. Along the way, Bud meets a lot of very interesting people. He believes he has an encounter with the vampire, so I found that really cute as a kid because I was just like, ooh, another vampire. I was just very much into it, and I just really love this story of hope, resilience, and just straight up a Black boy who just like, he's like, I'm on a mission. You're not going to deter me from doing what I want to do and what I'm going to do, because yes, I have lost my mom. Yes, I'm going through a lot of different changes, but I have a mission and I'm going to do it. Also, Bud is from Flint, Michigan. So I feel like that's another really huge component of it, especially when we know about Flint and the whole water crisis that is still ongoing. Like, did you know that? It's still ongoing, that they can't get quality water. So the fact that he is from Flint, Michigan, he's from an area that to this day still isn't getting the support that they need and that they deserve. I feel like it really solidifies that no matter where Black people are from, there's still so much that they're not getting. And it's very frustrating, especially as a Black person, because it's like, no matter how much you contribute to society, no matter how much you make yourself available to other people or to society or to other communities, your community continues to suffer regardless, but everyone expects a lot out of you. I didn't mean to get political, but it is what it is. Books are political, and especially when we're talking about crises such as Flint and just the Great Depression and also just any time period, books are political regardless. We're just going to leave it at that. Next up is I Thought My Soul Would Rise and Fly. So these are the diaries from Dear America. Again, more historical fiction. I extremely loved the Dear America diaries. I read, from what I can remember, I think I read almost every one of them that I had at my school's library. So that was approximately maybe 30 of them. And just like the other books, I just really loved reading about characters, especially little girls during different time periods. It was always just so fascinating to me of just well, we're worried about Disney Channel and which Jonas brother do we want to date? And then there are girls during time periods where it's I'm worried if I'm going to live. And it's oh, okay, we don't have the same problems. And it really made me grateful to be born into a time where I wasn't experiencing this. I mean, we've all experienced different things at different stages of our lives, especially in society, but we never had to go through slavery. I can't relate to that, but I know what it would kind of feel like, and just being able to read other people's stories, even though it is fictional, but it still comes from a space that it is purely historically accurate, where there are kids that were involved in these situations where it's what the hell? They're too young to be experiencing this, but they were born in a time period where the world and society and the government it all just went to shit. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. If you like this video, be sure to like the video. In the comments below, add a book that changed your life as a child. And until next time, bye.